how was the situation, economical situation, social, and especially the rights. I mean, freedom of speech, the control of securitate, or the things affect like to the citizen like a citizen, and then the transition period, how it was.
Okay, so yeah, my name is Bogdan. I'm almost 55 years old. I was born in 1968. It's a joke about this because a lot of children were born in 67, 68, 69 because decree that Ceausescu issued banning the abortion. Yeah, the result was a big number of newborn. So the first years of my life I spent in communism. The authorities like to call it the golden era of Romania, because in their vision everything was bright and well, but we didn't felt like this, because starting from 80s a big penuria of goods installed. Any kind of goods there were scarce, even the toilet paper and stuff like that, but also some basic foods and some. We have rations for bread, we have rations for milk, we have rations for oil and sugar and so on. And the thing is that this wasn't the worst part, because yeah, Romanians are very resourceful and they manage in a way to deal with this scarcity of goods. But we missed a lot the freedom of going abroad, the freedom of speech, the freedom of thinking, things like that. And this was, I think, a policy very, very clever and well led by the authorities. You asked about securitate, about the Secret Service. I haven't seen one of what I didn't interact. Maybe I've seen a member of this institution, but the propaganda and the folklore made us believe that they are behind every corner. They are ubiquitous. They know everything. They do everything. I think examples like people disappearing in the middle of the night and stuff like that were encouraged on purpose to make us believe that this can happen to anyone. Of course, I think I strongly believe that this can happen. This could happen, but yeah, I have no interaction with this kind of people. Maybe someone can ask himself what kept us, let's say, sane in the mind. And it was music, it was literature, it was a space that they couldn't take from us. They tried, because also the culture was scarce during the communist time. Only the proved culture was allowed. But as I said, Romanians are very resourceful, and we manage somehow to get some pieces of culture from the western part of Europe, and to enjoy it. And in this way we felt free. I don't know what more to say. Yeah, comparing with those times, now it seems like a bad dream, but yeah, that's the reality, and I think most of us were strongly influenced by those conditions.
The regime, how was evolving? Because in Soviet Union there was a kind of opening until they find perestroika. But in Romania, it seems that at the 80s was harder than before.
Yeah, because first of all, salut. First of all, I don't know. There are a lot of reasons. I'm not sure what was the real one. One of the reasons was that Ceausescu assumed to finish with the external loans. You know, in a normal economy, in a normal situation, any country, each country lives on those external loans. He wanted to liquidate it. And of course, this takes a lot of efforts and a lot of sacrifices from people. For that, it was the scarcity of the goods, because all the goods should go to the export, and they had to export anything. I have a very good example here in Buzău. It was a factory, a metallurgic factory, and they exported pickaxes. I don't remember, I think in Germany or something. And the Germans imported those pickaxes at prices like nothing, just because they needed the wood from the handles and from the the things where the pickaxes were, the boxes, and the pickaxes went directly to forgery to melt it and do something else. So this is a very good example how they exported at a minimal price and so on, just because they needed those money. Another thing is that at the beginning of the 80s, it started the work at the House of People. You saw it. We hate it. Our generation hate it because you can imagine that in that building and all those buildings on the boulevard that should it be called the victory of communism, took a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of people worked there, a lot of people died there. So imagine that a country that is not so rich like Romania managed to build it in 20 years or something. And another thing that I think it's the reason for the scarcity and so on is that they thought that in this way they can control the people better. People with full bellies have time to think, and they didn't want us to think. So it was the chase for goods, the chase for things that are basic for living, and you don't have time to think. This is what that's my opinion. It wasn't on purpose. People were queuing. There were a lot of jokes about this, like first queue and then ask what it's at the end of the queue, because but it happened all the time.
I would like, because I listen to stories from my mother. My grandmother, she didn't talk so much, but actually my mother told me about my grandmother's situation during dictatorship. After war, Europe was destroyed, Spain was especially destroyed. There was a lot of needs, everything. And we have the censorship, we have we call autarky. At the beginning, Franco wanted to be like Ceausescu, like no debts, no influence from the external. They want to do everything inside of the country, the trucks, the clothes, everything. But we didn't have. I didn't live, but I didn't hear like this kind of situation like in the communist times with the Securitate, like people feel like they are spying by someone all the time. They didn't have that, but of course they have censorship and they have poorness. And there's one big difference, and this is the question, because the strategy of Franco was no education, so people were ignorant, illiteracy mostly, unless you are in a wealthy family. But in the communist times, you have education, but you achieve the same goal with the opposite strategy. In Spain was no education, here it was education in order to control the people. How you can explain this paradox?
Because they saw the education like a brainwashing process. During the school years, the children were in a way brainwashed. From the first class, and in the latest years, even from the pre-primary school, we had this organization like it was called Pioneers. It's like Boy Scouts organization, very in a way militarized. There were, each class was divided in groups. We had the head of the group, then the head of the class, and the bannerman, and stuff like that. All the let's say important moments, like the birthday of Ceausescu, the birthday of his wife, turning the arms on 23rd of August against the Germans, and so on, were very, very, let's say, very important in school. And aside of that, why education? Why good education? Because they needed the resources to survive. They needed to have people that can do everything that should be done in the country. They weren't stupid to imagine that without engineers, without workers that are well prepared and so on, something can be done. You cannot gain the independency from the economical part with uneducated people. And they understood that, and they prepared that.
In Spain, I think educated people was from the good families, called like that. These people have a role to become rulers. I mean, like boss of the factory, boss of the office, these kind of things. And they have some people who are in the offices. All these people need to have education, but mostly people have working in the fields, working like industrial worker. This kind of thing. These people don't need to have so much.
Imagine that in the 50s, the policy was like this. If you were from a good family that previously owes land, or your parents were, I don't know, priests or from previous political class and so on, your access to the higher education was blocked. I know someone who, because her father was a priest, she was banned from the school. One of my father's brothers, one of my uncles, the younger one, was banned from the beginning. He was studying in a military academy, and because someone told to authorities that my grandfather was mayor during the previous regime, he was banned. He had to go out from that university, and fortunately could move to a civil construction university and finish there. But these things happen. On the other side, let's say the children of working class were encouraged to go to reach higher education, and it was I think it was a way to earn them loyalty, to make them loyal to the, okay, look, this party made me an engineer. This party allowed me to become a doctor, and so on. And it was the same thing with the main core of the Securitate.
Okay. One second. Sorry, we are making recording.
Let's say the hardcore of this secret service was made by boys taken from orphanage, taken from very poor families, environments, and they were given a very good life. They had big incomes, they had access to all kind of goods, they had power towards other people. They could decide at one point, okay, this one life can be destroyed by me, and this is something, and this creates loyalty.
And how was the transition in the 90s? Because normally all the East countries has a decrease of economy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about the social rights, maybe you get more social rights, but how was this transition?
The transition was very wild, let's say. Of course, we weren't educated to deal with the let's say free society, consuming society, this kind of open economy and so on. Everything was guided by the state. So for the big majority of Romanians, it was very difficult to understand the mechanism, the processes, the things that were happened to them. On the other hand, these members of secret service or the second and third wave from the Communist Party, at the moment of fall of Ceausescu, they had all the power because they had all the knowledge. They knew everything. The information was in their hands. So the most successful businessman from the beginning, and now we have their children, but the most successful businesses was made by those people. And yeah, they made it, let's say, in a very wild way. They didn't care about the rest of people and so on. So yeah, it was the transition was very hard. It was a chaos. I think a chaos made on purpose. It was a vacuum of power. So yeah.
There was a high corruption. Corruption increased.
It still is, but then the corruption was something like unwritten law. You couldn't do something important without pay the price. That's it. You couldn't have access to a good doctor without pay. You couldn't have access to a loan without paying. So whatever.
And in Spain, for example, the transition was very, very demanded. That especially the intellectual class will be kind of a war if we didn't have a transition in Spain. But it was supervised by the United States. The process, how the political system will be. We have a e-camera like the United States. It was, the Germans was in charge to help with the political transition, but it was was supervised, we can say. Do you have any supervision from external power?
We did when, let's say, those in power and those with the money decided that it's a good deal to go along with EU. And then they had to adapt with EU regulation, with the way that the things are done in EU, and of course in an original way, but it was, and we felt it. Until 2007, when Romania joined EU, we felt it. We felt the presence of EU more like in present days. After 2007, they made a step back. But until then, their presence was very, very well felt by Romanians. And let's say the decent people appreciated that, because they tried to make the justice juridic system work, the political system work, and the democracy and the market working as well to be fit to enter EU. So yeah, it was a kind of supervising. But at the beginning of 90s, it was Wild West. Like in the Wild West.
How you settle the system?
Sorry?
The system, how was settled? It was kind of a messier, I mean, a big leader, or how was starting to be? Because from the nothing to create a democracy state isn't complicated.
I think I really don't remember right now, but I feel more than I think. I feel that it was the power of the people. People wanted to have a pluri-partinic system, even though there are, and there were, a lot that liked the idea of leader, the big leader, and so on. Iliescu, the first president after the fall of Ceausescu, was a kind of this leader, but they felt, the people in power felt that people want this pluripartinic system. And that was a good thing. It wasn't imposed from up to down. The Constitution, yes. The Constitution, it was imposed in a way, with propaganda and stuff like that. But the actual system, I think it came natural from the people.
And there was more claiming for freedom or for goods?
Sorry?
The people was claiming at that time more for freedom or for goods?
I think for both.
In Spain
I think
was
for both.
only freedom, because we know the democracy will not make us richer, but at least we don't have the censorship and stuff. But here is different.
Yeah, I think it was both. Anyway, speaking for myself, of course, I was expecting that the things will improve from material part, and of course, I expected to be free to speak. I couldn't imagine that someday I will travel all around the Europe. It was, let's say, a wild dream, but at that moment, to be free to go anywhere in the country, to say whatever you want and don't be punished, to have access to culture and stuff, those were big things for us. Yeah, so my father was a principal of a high school here in Buzău, and one day 2 members of Secret Service came to him and told him that one or a group of students from that school were written to this Free Europe radio station, and they wanted to find out who. How they managed to find him? They asked for a written piece of paper from everyone. So they have one test from each classroom. Imagine there were more than 1,500 students, maybe 2,000 students in that school. But they stayed 1-2 days, and this is the one. And of course, they made they expelled the student just because he had the audacity to write to this radio station that was against the regime. And yeah, that's a thing that I know about.
The language they used in the radio was English?
No, it's Romanian. It was Romanian. Yeah.
So they have a radio for each eastern country, probably?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. A lot of people from there came back after the revolution. For example, I think the ambassador in Berlin now, it's a former reporter from that station.
The people who were there is Romanian who escaped from Romania?
Yes, yes. And of course they were hunted by security service. In one moment, one of the main reporters was killed, or were killed by secret services.
In Germany?
So, yes, in Germany.
In West Germany?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. It was a struggle. So I can imagine that if someone would find us listening that radio station, at least the parents would have problems from the authorities.
There was kind of tortures and stuff like that?
I'm not aware of that, but yeah, there were a lot of stories in the folklore about what kind of tortures that they can do and how they are torturing people. But I don't know someone directly to tell me about this.
In Spain, we have the third cases like, I don't know how they were called, but police department. We have a case now, the old man now, but he was called Billy the Kid, Billy el Niño.
Mm-hmm.
And he was famous to torture especially women for fun or for taking information. And he got an honor medal with a payment per month, so he kind of the dictatorship. And I think in the last year there was some news, and then gets annoyed, and then they take out this medal from him. But it's kind of difficult things to remove that legally in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
So still we have this torture and murder, and we can call them criminals somehow, but legal ones, and with honorized by the regime. Do you have this kind of people?
Yeah, of course. And it was a big struggle. For example, last year, one of those torturers was convicted. Now he is more than 80 years old, so I don't know what good would that make, but still there is. Of course, there were tortures. Of course, there were nasty things. All the people that were against the regime were sent either to work, forced labor to the canal, the channel between Danube and Black Sea, or in Danube Delta, or in the most dangerous places where they were put to work very hard, like in mines and whatever. And of course, the people that were surveilling them weren't the nicest in the world.
Well, maybe you have any kind of example that remarkable in case you have? About in general, think about specific things happened to someone or story. I remember you were talking some things in Estonia, but I don't remember exactly.
There are a lot of...
I remember something about the train.
About the train.
That people take a train and...
That was maybe when my grandma and her family, they were refugees from Moldavia, because they were teachers, and the Russians were coming. They knew that the intellectuals would be sent directly to Siberia. So in 1944, they had to refugee to come in Romania and establish here. My mother was 4 years old. My aunt, her sister, was less than 1 year. In a wagon used for cattle, there were a lot of people. It was winter, I think, and very, very poor conditions. And yeah, they had to come here.
And your grandfather?
My grandfather was in the army, in the Romanian army. He was there. He managed just to. It was a very good luck, because when first time, so the occupation, the Russians already installed in Moldavia, and they didn't manage to go away. And in the night when they should come to take them and send in Siberia, the guy with the list, with the people that should be deported, wasn't home. He was joining a wedding party at several kilometers away. So they didn't wait for the list, so they went out. And luckily, the next day, my grandfather get the permission to come and to prepare the family to go away, and he managed to come. So it was like in a a movie, an action movie, very fast. Put in some bags, some basic things to have on the road. They left everything behind and to the train and to Romania.
So we're talking about the time where Moldova was taken by Russia?
Yes, the second time. First time was in '39, and then Romanians, along with the Germans, went and took back the Moldavia and went with the Russians until the Stalingrad. And then in '44 they took it again.